Well, good morning. Hey, we are heading across the state of Ohio right now into the Akron, Youngstown area to take a look at an old style building made new again. We're going to take a look at a bank barn that was just recently completed by the crews of our dealer Mass Metal Sales. And this bank barn isn't just by name only, it is a functioning bank barn. When we were told of how the customer wanted to use this building, we quickly realized it was beyond what was typical for us. The customer is using, I believe it's a 12,000 pound lift to bring in large bales out of the field for storage. And just the live load of that alone would far exceed what would be typical of a loft for a K building. Generally speaking, the lofts in a K, we figure at a 40 pound per square foot loading, which is a typical residential floor load. And that takes care of probably 95% of what people want to use it for. And those lofts are attached to the K building frames themselves, the legs of the K building frames at a height that would be what the customer would like. This building, given just the sheer weight of what's going to be on that floor, the headers, the loft headers themselves are attached directly to the foundation, and our engineers gave us the roadmap for the size of angle iron that need to be used in the construction of these loft headers, and the spacing of the columns, the size of the columns, even the joist material size and the spacing of that, and the subfloor that was used on this all works together as a system directed by the engineers to make sure that it can handle the loading that's going to be asked of this floor system. So it is unique. I've been with K for quite a few years. I've never seen anything quite like this. You know, there have been buildings that have built that maybe have resembled that, but not being used quite to the extreme that this building is. But we're very confident that this building is going to be everything the customer needs it to be. And once the crews finished the job, they called and said, Doug, you got to come up here and take a look at this building, because it really is a unique structure. And so we're on the way, and we're glad you're coming along with us. So if there's any other kind of buildings that you want us to take a look at, whether you're considering a airplane hangar or a cold storage building or a farm shop or a house or any other kind of building, let us know. There's a lot of different buildings that are out there. Leave us some comments down below, and I'll reach back out to you and share with you the information that we have, and maybe even create more content and bring it online here for everyone to see. But also, while you're at it, take a moment, like our page, ring the bell, do all that stuff. It truly does make a difference, and it does help. And so if you would, we'd greatly appreciate that. But we're glad you're with us, so let's go to the Akron, Youngstown area together and check this out. So as we're heading across 30 here in Ohio, I'm going to pull over here in just a moment, and I'm going to show you something. I'm going to ask you, what famous movie did this come from? This is one of the things that I like about traveling, and I fortunately get to travel a lot of different states dealing with the K-building dealers that we have, and get to see a lot of things. I remember not too long ago, too many years ago, I was in northeast Iowa and got to stop in at the Field of Dreams. That was fun. And while I was at the Field of Dreams, I was standing on the field, and I'm looking over at the first base line, and there's a guy in a wool baseball uniform talking to a couple of people in the stands. And as I start walking towards home plate, his conversation ends, and he comes over and meets me at home plate and says, "How you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm doing fine." And he says, "Do you want to have a catch?" And I said, "Really?" He says, "Well, better yet, would you like to take some BP or batting practice?" And I said, "Yes." And the next thing I know, he's out there at the mound lobbing me balls that I'm hitting on the Field of Dreams. It was absolutely incredible. And you know, after a little while of that, there was another gentleman, much like I was, you know, coming onto the field, just kind of checking out the place. And I said, I imagine this guy would like to hit too, so I gave him the bat, and I kind of chugged out to the outfield, and it was just an absolutely wonderful day. it's those kind of things when you're traveling on the road like this. I mean, you're doing serious work and you're meeting people and you're doing the things you need to do, but boy, if you don't take the time to stop at some of these places along your path, sometimes you just got to stop and smell the roses a little bit and enjoy what you do. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. So I just want to share it with you. But down below, leave your comments where you think what I'm about to stop at, what movie you think it came from. You know, in addition to that famous prison movie, there's been a lot of other movies that have been filmed in Ohio over the years. How many other movies can you think of? As I'm sitting here, I know there is Air Force One, if you remember that, was filmed in part in Ohio, as was Tango and Cash. Tango and Cash, if you remember that movie, with Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. Rain Man was filmed in Cincinnati in the early part of that movie. In fact, they go over the Roebling Bridge across the Ohio River in Rain Man. And Major League was another favorite movie of mine that was filmed in the old stadium where the Indians used to play. But list down below other movies that you can think of that were filmed in Ohio. There's been quite a few.
The destination is on your left.
So imagine in 2023, a storm rolls in here into northeast Ohio, and of the old barn, the siding gets blown off and some doors get blown off, and it's then that the family knows they need to do something with this barn and get it replaced. The old barn that was built in the 1890s had seen its better days, and with the given size, given the posts and the limitations of the ceiling height in the basement, they figured it's time to go ahead and replace the barn. But the goal was to keep it on the same footprint of the original barn, which meant we need another bank barn. Now, there's not many bank barns that are built in today's world. Farmers today usually will just take an outcropping of the acreage they have, build a new facility and just build it bigger and have it all on one floor, but that was not an option for this family. So it was then they started considering different building options and talking to area neighbors here who have barns of their own, when they came upon a neighbor not too far from here who had just finished a K, and they went and toured his, and they liked what they saw. They liked the steel frames, they liked the vaulted ceiling, and they liked the fact that they could do all of this with a clear span, which would open up all the space upstairs for their square bales and round bales of hay coming off the field, as well as some additional equipment storage. But also, with this family, they needed to keep it on the same footprint of the original barn, which meant they actually did need this bank barn, which complicated it quite a bit. But after talking with the area neighbor, they hit on the K building and ended up reaching out to Massed Metal Sales in Middlefield, and the conversation started from there. It was later in 23 that we got involved after an order was placed and many conversations were had with the concept, is it even possible? And it was. The goal at that point then was to get it done before the first cut of hay in 2024. And here we are today in late May of 2024. They've just started to cut just the very first bit of hay right now, and the goal was achieved. So once the decision was made that a bank barn was what they wanted to do, and they found a builder in K Buildings that was going to be able to produce that building, then came the idea of how do we get rid of the old barn? And that was the next hurdle that needed to be crossed. And it was then that the family reached out to Ohio Valley Barn Salvage, a local timber company here, and they agreed to come in, tear down the barn, paid them for the timbers, leaving just the remnants of the stuff that they no longer wanted. And the family then burned that up, took the foundation of the original barn, with the exception of the wall at the bank itself, tore all the rest of the concrete out and ground it up and spread that around the job site. And shortly after that, then the new foundation, the forms were set, new foundation was poured, and construction was soon to begin. So once the family decided that a bank barn is what they wanted to do, and they found the company that could build their bank barn, it became important to them that they kept the same kind of style and look as their previous barn. So you'll notice the colors match the old barn, as well as the series of sliding doors here on the lower level, as well as the sliding doors on the second level upstairs. Now those sliding doors on the second level actually serve a couple of different purposes. Not only do they provide additional access to the second floor, but they can also be opened up fully and provide a lot of additional ventilation. And speaking of ventilation, all the louvers on these buildings are built by local Amishmen and brought to the job site and then installed. So while this lower level is not quite prepared yet, soon this aggregate's going to be leveled off and a concrete floor is going to be poured in here, and a dozen head of cattle will soon be calling this space home. The cattle are here on the farm. They're in another building here right now until this area is complete. But this floor that we see above us was the critical element to the building itself. The frames of the building above us are a typical agricultural K building, but this floor that's above us needed to, once again, be able to handle not all the hay that's going to be stored up there, as well as the tractors and that are coming in. So this floor is specifically engineered for that loading. I had mentioned earlier that typical lofts of a K are figured at 40 pounds a square foot, whereas this, what we're calling a second floor, is no longer a loft, it's a second floor. If I'm not mistaken, it's rated for like 120 or 150 pounds per square foot. And the engineers specifically have made that work for us. The red headers that are here, along with the 6-inch I-beam placement, was critical from the engineers. The joist material is a 2x12 #1 Southern Yellow Pine, placed at 12 inches on center, and it's a pretty stout floor. So as the family were starting to reimagine and bring in a high-tech solution to an old-style bank barn, they were able to increase the height of their sliding doors and then remove all the obstructions that the old bank barn had on this second level, providing them a wide open, clear space to store all their round and square bales, as well as all of their equipment. Well, soon this new K-building bank barn is going to be home to about 6,000 square bales and around 200 to 250 round bales. When you start doing the math on that, the square bales, which are primarily packaged for the horse people in the area, are roughly about 45 pounds each, and the 200 to 250 round bales are going to be roughly 800 pounds each. And they will be stacked to what they call the square of the building, which is right there where the roof meets the sidewall. So when we talk about build time on this building, from the time the foundation was in and the red irons on site and the crews arrived, it took about 3 weeks to get this building completely erected and largely finished. Many of the family members here talk about being away for a few days, then coming back, and they went from a bare foundation to pretty much the entire building being up. They had one day where they had a crane here to set the red iron mainframes, and then in the days following from that was the installation of all the wood sidewall girts and the roof purlins. Then of course the covering and that went on shortly after that. The floor in this building is a 2x8 treated tongue and groove. That alone took a week in itself to get installed. But once it was all said and done, the family now is able to start bringing some of the bales in, some of their equipment in, and they're finally starting to realize what their vision was a little over a year ago. So for those Bobcat enthusiasts out there, the primary method of getting a lot of the bales in and out, they're going to be using a Bobcat T300, and that T300 with the grabber and the bales will be about 12,000 pounds in and of itself. So since about 2010, every K building that's produced goes out of our facility with an ID tag riveted right to one of the end walls. And this ID tag not only provides the building owner the direct contact information to Elgin Service Center, but it also gives them an ID number specific to their building, as well as the month and year that the building was fabricated. And this information is supplied to the building in the event that there's any issue with the building, whether it's Mother Nature or whether somebody actually backs into and does any damage to the building whatsoever. It gives the building owner quick access to information that will contact the factory directly, and anything that we had supplied to that building, whether it may just be the red iron, it may be red iron and lumber, it may be everything with the building, sliding doors, covering, windows, walk doors, anything that Elgin Service Center had supplied to that building, the customer can call us and we can bring up in our database and then be able to either give them whatever support it is they need, whether they need to know colors or size of doors or windows, or maybe something more serious if they've backed into a leg or damaged some of the red iron in some way, shape, or form. It will give us then a quick access and roadmap to what has been supplied, and give our fabricators the knowledge of what they need to reproduce in the event that any component needs to be replaced. Well, so there you have it. A high-tech solution to an old-style bank barn. Hey, if you have any questions, drop us a question down below and I'll be sure to respond back to you, and let us know if there's any other style barns you would like us to feature, and we certainly will on future videos. But hey, take a moment also, if you would, like our page and ring the bell, do all that stuff. But we really do appreciate you being here with us today, and we will catch you on the next one.